Hey, math tutor here. These are step-by-step explanations, and I'm going to show you exactly how to write your answers. So average rate of change is basically slope, ARC, if you want to abbreviate it. Okay, so it's just like rise over run, right? So in this case, the rise, the y coordinates are m, so m of 10 minus m of 5. The x coordinates, or they're called t coordinates in this problem, is 10 and 5. Okay, so m of 10, the table should tell us, is 16. M of 5 is 7. Cool. So you're doing like 16 minus 7 over 10 minus 5. That equals 9 over 5. But if I were you, I would not simplify it. I would just leave my answer like this, because remember, you do not have to simplify on the FRQ section. There is one other thing though, units. It does say indicate units of measure. If it doesn't ask for units, you don't have to write units, but it does in this problem. So the numerator has units of birds per day, right? And then the denominator is going to have units of just days, right? T is days. So this is almost like birds per day. You could say that, that would get you full credit. You could also say birds per day squared. So either one is fine. Now I'm going to show you exactly how I would write my answer if I saw this question on the exam. Wow, not a lot to write, huh? If you wrote this, you would literally get full credit. And that's often the case with these calculator questions. There's just really not a whole lot to write. Okay, on to part B, midpoint Riemann sum. So 3 subintervals, that means 3 rectangles, right? Area of a rectangle is base times height. So you're going to have like 3 base time heights, if that makes sense. 3 instances of base times height. Now the base of each rectangle is 10, because 0 to 10 is a amount of 10, 10 to 20, right? Difference of 10, same thing, 20 to 30. They all have bases of 10. The heights are going to be 7, 6, and 2. Why? Because those are like the middle, like the midpoint of these 3 subintervals, right? 7, 6, and 2. Right. The heights are not going to be like 2, 16, and 5. No, that would be a left Riemann sum. The heights are not going to be 16, 5, and 0. No, that would be a right Riemann sum. So there you go. That's your math. The answer is 150, but I would not actually calculate it. I would leave my answer unsimplified. You do not have to simplify on the FRQs. Yeah, that's how I write my answer. Now, if that still doesn't make sense to you, that's fine. I would recommend you draw it. So remember that this is a visual thing. You're literally approximating the area under a curve with rectangles. So why not draw it if you're confused? So I plotted all the points, and it's not like probably the greatest, most accurate plot in the world, but it's good enough. And I drew a curve through all of them. By the way, I actually don't know what the curve looks like. Like, for example, in this part, like, who knows? Maybe the curve should actually like go down here, right? Like, I don't know what the curve looks like, but I just drew like the most obvious curve, I thought, just connecting all the dots in an obvious way. Okay, now we need to approximate the area under the curve with rectangles, and it's gonna look like this, right? Because it's a midpoint Riemann sum. So like the middle of my rectangle needs to be touching the curve, right? It would be wrong if I drew my rectangle like this. That would be a left Riemann sum, because the left corner is touching the curve. Or it would be wrong to draw the rectangle like this, because this would be a right Riemann sum. The right corner is touching the curve. So, all right, so midpoint like this, and you can continue for the next sub-interval like this. It's always touching the middle of the curve. And now you just got to find the area of those rectangles, which I think you'll be able to do base times height. So hopefully that helps. Now, for the second part of the question, interpret the meaning of it. So M of t is a rate. It's birds per day, right? So if you integrate a rate, you get not a rate. If you integrate birds per day, you just get birds. So this is going to be the number of birds that arrive at the nesting area from 0 to 30. And you do have to say birds. Like when they say in the context of the problem, they want you to actually talk about like the story of the story problem. So it is essential that you mention like birds. If you don't say that, you probably won't get credit. Now in part C, you get a new function, which is also a rate. It's also measuring birds per day. So, similarly, like I mentioned above, if you integrated this, it would no longer be a rate. If you integrated this, it would just be birds, which is what they're asking us for. So that's what we need to do. We need to integrate this. They say from 15 to 45, so those are the bounds. And then, yep, that's the integral. Oh, and yes, I'm integrating this. I'm not integrating like the 0 or something. No, I'm integrating the second piece of this piecewise function. Why? Because they say from 15 to 45. Right. If they said from 0 to 15, then I guess you would use the first piece, right? Okay, but so you integrate that, and you get, well, here's the exact answer I got from, this is just a screenshot of Desmos, right? But you're supposed to round it to the nearest integer, so 642. This is how I would write my answer. Cool. All right, and then off to the final part where they want you to use intermediate value theorem, right? If they ever say, is there a time t in the interval, or is there a c in the interval, that's a clue that you're supposed to do intermediate value theorem or mean value theorem, IVT or MVT. In this case, it's IVT because there's no derivatives mentioned in this question, right? Like it's just d of t they're talking about, and d of t is just m of t minus f of t, no derivatives. If they were asking about d prime of t, okay, then that sounds like a question where you could use MVT, but or you could even use Rolle's theorem, I guess. But since there are no derivatives, we're using IVT. All right, so how does IVT work? We need to check if the number is in between the two endpoints. In this case, the number is 0. Right, 0. And we need to check if the function is continuous. So let's check if 0 is in between the endpoints. What even are the endpoints? They say 15 and 20, but those are x values, or t values. Like I need y values because 0 is a y value, right? So I'm comparing y values. That's what I need to do. So I plug 15 into the equation to get y values, okay? So m of 15, what is that going to be? Well, the table should tell me. Yeah, it's 6. Okay, and then f of 15, well, I need the equation for that, right? F was the equation they gave me in part C. So f of 15 is 2. All right, so 6 minus 2 equals 4. There you go. All right, and now I'm also going to need the y-coordinate for 20, so m of 20, f of 20. The table tells me m of 20 is 5. All right, and then f of 20, use my calculator for that, use the function for that. 6.686. Cool. So there you go. Do some math. You get a negative number. Now, I actually don't really care what the digits are for these numbers, right? I just care, like, is it positive? Is it negative, right? Because since one is positive and one is negative, that means 0 is in between. So, right, first criterion is satisfied. 0 is in between those two endpoints. Now I need to check if the function is continuous. The question actually doesn't say if the function is continuous. Right? If you read this question, nowhere does it say that we're continuous. What it does say is differentiable. And if a function is differentiable, that means it has to be continuous, right? So this is true as well. So I think the answer is, yeah, there is a time t in the interval, where d of t equals 0. Okay, so writing our answer, this is a yes or no question. So the first thing I would say is yes. because, and then I do have to say because, I do have to provide a reason because it does say justify your answer. So what is my reason? My reason is that 0 is in between the two numbers, right? And d of t is differentiable, which implies it is continuous. And you do actually have to say it's differentiable, which implies it's continuous, right? Like if you didn't include these words, I don't think you're getting full credit, right? Like because the question doesn't say it's continuous. You have to almost like prove or argue. You have to logically conclude that it's continuous. So you have to like write that out. So that's important. Also notice I didn't say that this equals 4, which is greater than 0, right? Because once again, the digits actually don't matter. What matters is that it's just greater than 0. So you don't even have to write that equals 4 or that equaled the negative 1 point blah blah blah. You don't have to write that. You can just say one's greater than 0, the other is less than 0. Yeah. All right. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.